We've moved through Matthew chapter 1 a few different times today, but I want to highlight, as we've been doing throughout our Advent series, one different story within one different person's story within the larger Christmas story. And today I just want to focus in on Joseph in Matthew chapter 1. And as we were just singing even Silent Night, and sometimes that song kind of has that very maternal and paternal instinct or feeling to it. You can almost just can kind of feel like the parents, Mary and Joseph, holding Jesus on that night. And I wonder sometimes on that silent night, or that holy night, that divine night that we celebrate when Jesus was born, and you think about Joseph giving the name to Jesus, and he says, this is Jesus, his name means salvation, he's going to save these people, this is the mighty counselor, the everlasting Father, this is mighty God, this is Prince of Peace, this is Emmanuel. I wonder at some point with Joseph specifically at that night, if he had questioned in his heart or thought, what if fear had gotten the best of him a few months prior? What if fear had led Joseph to conform to the patterns of the world? What if fear had gotten the best of Joseph? If Joseph had succumbed to his fears just a few months prior when Mary shared the news that she was with child, his fear almost wrote him out of the silent night. You could take your nativity and you could throw the little Joseph statue away if his fear had gotten the best of him. Because it says in Matthew chapter 1, verse 18, that the birth of Jesus took place in this way. Mary, Jesus' mother, had been betrothed to Joseph. And before they came together, Mary was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. And her husband, Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered these things, as he contemplated divorcing Mary, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you, Joseph, will call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. This Christmas season, you may be filled with all sorts of fearful considerations. That's what Joseph had to do. He was considering these things, pondering these things, running through the logistics of what will it mean for me if she has this child? What will it mean for me? In fact, the patterns of the world, the resolutions of the day would have not batted an eye. Nobody would have thought it strange had he followed through and divorced her. In fact, the most merciful, the most kind of Jewish thing he could have done is what he had resolved to do, which was to divorce her quietly so as not to shame her. It was a merciful and just divorce. And if he had chosen that route, Joseph would have been choosing to write a better story for himself. His choice that day was to enter the story God was writing, or to continue writing his own story. It's almost like the angel comes in and says, Joseph, you are invited to literally foster parent. You are invited to foster the presence of the Messiah in the world. And that's a calling and invitation that's been given to all of us. Not in the same way that it was given to Mary. Maybe, in fact, we're more like Joseph than anybody else in the story. We have been invited to nurture and care for the presence of Christ in the world. Matthew chapter 1, verse 22 to 25 goes on to say that this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son. They will call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took his wife, but knew her not until she had given birth to a son, and called his name Jesus. Now, we've invited the kids in, so I'm not going to go through all the great details of what this all means. But what it means is that this whole Immaculate Conception thing is legit. Both Mary and Joseph are on board. He took her as his wife, but he knew her not until the child was born. Why did Joseph do this? I mean, if you think about the cost to Joseph, this cost him his dream of a family, the family that he always wanted. It cost him that. This costs Joseph something vocationally. This child is going to mean that they have to flee to Egypt for the prime of his career, at the height of his business. He's going to have to leave that behind in order to care for this child. Socially, we don't even have to go through, again, Mary bears the brunt of this, right? Talked about that last week. But Joseph also. Hey, did you hear? Did you hear? Did you know? Hey, did you know? Did you know that that's not Joseph's kid? Hey, you know the oldest one, right? That one's not Joseph's. Familially, vocationally, socially, why does Joseph go through with this? I think it's because Joseph's longing for the Christ was greater than his fear. He so longed for God to move in the world. Have you ever realized how exhausting our fear is? Micromanaging our fears is exhausting. There's so many things to be scared of, which then drives us into like micromanagerial mode, right? Like we try to fix everything or solve everything or control everything. And before we know it, we're just plain exhausted. We've been talking about it. This is like the song says, the weary world. The weary world, the patterns of the world. Had Joseph chose to conform, he would have lived just as an exhausting story. He would have continued micromanaging his fears for the rest of his life. Conformity, writing your own story, micromanaging your family, your job, and your social life. It's killing you. It's killing you. Because God didn't create you to be a micromanager. God created you to be a macro participant. You are invited to nurture the presence of Christ in this world. Conformity, doing Christmas, doing life like everybody else, micromanaging all of our fears is exhausting. But Joseph's faith ran deeper than his fear. Joseph's faith ran deeper than his fear. Now, this may not be the most encouraging thing a pastor ever tells you, but you will be afraid for the rest of your life. Your life will never be absent of fear. You will always have to deal with fear. Is your faith bigger than your fear? Is your faith deeper than your fear? Does your faith overwhelm fear whenever fear rears its head in your life? How strong is your faith this Christmas? It's the Advent theme that we're on this week. We're talking about faith. We're talking about Joseph. Faith will multiply what fear diminishes in your life. Fear will steal your joy. Fear will take away hope. Fear will reduce your peace. But faith will multiply them. Faith will amplify your joy. Faith will magnify your peace. Faith will multiply your hope. It will be filled, like Romans chapter 15 says. You will be filled. The God of hope will fill you with all joy and peace in believing. In believing. In your faith is abundant joy. In your faith is abundant peace. But you and I have been operating out of our fear. And it's exhausting us, wearing us down, creating a weary world of conformity. The God of hope will fill you with all joy and peace in believing that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you might abound in hope. If you're tired of fleeting peace, or dwindling hope, or partial joy, stop conforming to the patterns of the world. That's what Romans chapter 12 and this whole unconformed thing has been about, right? If you haven't gotten a t-shirt yet from us, please take one today, because we're not doing this study come January. I gotta get rid of these. But if you're in your heart today, your faith step today is to say, I no longer want to conform to the micromanaging fear patterns of exhaustion in this world. If you want to unconform, like Romans chapter 12 talks about, to not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed by the renewal of your mind. If you want your soul full of hope, if you want your soul full of joy, if you want your soul full of peace, it happens in your faith. In your faith, the power of the Holy Spirit will transform you from the inside out. And you'll no longer be micromanaging fears leading to exhaustion. You'll be a macro participant in God's amazing story, and you will be empowered by the Holy Spirit. You too will receive power that leads to abundant hope, joy, and peace. So my hope for you really is that 2024 would be your most empowered year because of Romans 12 and Romans 15. If these things are true, we are trying to establish a church here that will empower anyone to live every day and love everyone. That's what we're trying to do here. By the power of the Holy Spirit, we want you to live every day and love everyone, to love God with everything, and to love everyone always. And I believe this. If you deepen your faith, you will love your life. If you deepen your faith, you will love your life. We're going to sing one last song as the team comes back forward. But the song really is about our King. The song is about this kid that we've been celebrating all day long. The kid who is the King. And it's our belief that by Jesus' finished work, his life, death, and resurrection, that he has enabled the Holy Spirit to empower us. Do you believe that? Do you believe that there is an empowerment waiting for you to grab hold of it? Do you believe that there's a bigger story that God has written waiting for you to participate in it? Do you believe that Christ is the King? Do you believe that the kid is the King?